You're on 94.9. It's 17 minutes past 4 and it's that time of the day, Tuesday afternoon, Creation Ministries International. And today we have Dr. Michael Thompson on the line. Good afternoon, Dr. Michael.
G'day, Mick. How are you?
Awesome. It's great to have you back again after last week. That was pretty exciting what we were talking about last week. And this week, well, I think we're going to be talking about something pretty exciting as well. I know talking to you last week, I mentioned that I'd been up to Queensland and I've been snorkeling, and it's kind of my new favourite thing, snorkeling. And I've heard that you're a bit of a snorkeler. However, I worry about you having a bit of a death wish because I heard you went snorkeling with more than 50 sharks. What on earth made you do that?
Yeah, that's right. These weren't as bad as people might think. I was actually on so I'm near the Gold Coast, or Brisbane, that sort of area. And one of the Gold Coast beaches called Burleigh Heads. For the last couple of years, there's been a migration of juvenile scalloped hammerhead sharks. And they're little babies, essentially. They're about a metre long. And they stick in packs of, 50 to 100. And they all just sort of, literally, you go to the red and yellow flags, 50 metres away between the flags and the surfers. The day I went, there were just 100 sharks just doing circles underwater. Probably 200 or 300 metre circles. And so all the snorkelers are heading out. And I jumped in with them and essentially just, you're diving at the snorkeling at the surface, and then when you see them coming, you dive down so you can get nice and close and get some footage. And and they just swim around. And
yeah, nice that you say they're only like a metre long. I mean, a lot of people out here are thinking, anything over 20 centimetres is too big for me. I mean, I guess we're all so used to getting out of the water when sharks are about. We hear the alarms down here and out you get, but good to know they're not all out there to eat us, right?
Yeah, so there's always a risk, but I kind of think of it this way with particular species of sharks. It's a bit like, if you're interacting with dogs or something else that's got teeth, they could bite you, but if you know their behaviour, then it's pretty unlikely, or you know how to behave around them as well. So, if you're splashing about or scared in the water, which is hard to do, so you see a shark to not feel scared.
Yes.
But if you do keep calm and many species will not be bothered and not be interested in a bite, and a lot of them don't even really have teeth. So when I go snorkeling at the Gold Coast, there's a species called a bamboo shark, it's just got like sandpaper-like mouth. It's not really, it doesn't really have teeth, and there's wobbegongs and all sorts of sharks. But the ones you really got to look out for are the bull sharks, tiger sharks, and great whites, because those ones are, again, there's plenty of times where they'll swim right past someone and not be interested, but occasionally they will. So that's when people are diving and or spearfishing or any water activities. If you see one of them, you just calmly try and get out of the water. But
okay, when you say don't be scared, can they smell you, or is it them seeing you thrashing about?
Well, I can kind of pick up on you. I haven't experienced these bigger sharks. I think I saw a bull shark once when I was snorkeling. But if you've got very clear water, they're generally not going to be interested in having a go at you because they know you can see them well. So keeping your eyes on them, I've found. Well, I haven't seen many big ones, but from what I've heard, you keep your eyes on them. You don't turn your back to them and sort of swim the other. You're just real calm and. So there's certain things where you can read with I think with some sharks, their pectoral fins will actually curl down a little bit if they're aggressive. And if they're more level, then they're a bit more relaxed. So there's little cues you can kind of read when you see them interacting with you. But at the end of the day, if you've got a real big one, probably a good time to calmly get out of the water.
Yeah, get out of there. It sounds like the designs of our Creator God. Tell us about some of the interesting design features of sharks.
Yeah, well, there's so many. For people who do see them in the water, they'll tell you just how incredibly like slipstream and graceful. And I mean, graceful is a bit of an odd word to use, but when you see them in the water, they just glide through the water. And part of that's actually their skin. They've got actually quite a rough skin, a lot of them, kind of sandpaper-like, and you'd think that would slow them down.
Yeah, friction.
Yeah, that's right. But so it turns out the fine bumps in the skin actually, well, it's like a scale sort of thing. When you really zoom in, it creates these tiny little vortices which link up to form a buffer-like layer for the. I guess when you think about the fluid dynamics of it, the way that the air travels past, like a car that's a boxy car will be hit by the wind a lot more than a car that's got nice smooth curves. So at a very small level, these little bumps actually make these little vortices which kind of smooths things out for them and causes less drag behind them. So when the easiest analogy to this, or just another example that we have, is actually golf balls. And so we've got the dimples on the golf balls, and that actually makes them travel about twice as far through the air as one without dimples, because of the stability it gives it in the air, and it takes the drag away. And so it took people quite a while to discover this fluid dynamics design, and because it seems a bit counterintuitive, but of course God's designed these creatures, this created kind, with these features already at a very fine level. It's an incredible design.
Yeah, wow. What about hammerhead sharks in particular? They have a very different shaped head to other sharks. Is that for any good reason?
Yeah. Well, I think there's some scientists are still learning a lot about. I mean, the sharks are hard to study because they're kind of elusive, and
a lot of people don't want to study them. Yeah, get out of the water quick.
That's right. So, but there have been some studies on the hammerheads and trying to think about, okay, what's the purpose of this big head that they've got? And here's some ideas. Well, the hydrodynamic design is pretty clear. If you actually have a look at if someone just Googles, the hammerhead shark, well, you can just imagine in your head, even the way their eye is, and it looks like an aeroplane wing. The shape of their head from a side on. Now, it doesn't actually give them. They've done studies. They've worked out that the angle that it's at doesn't actually create lift for them through the water, but it does give them it's quite low resistance, so they've got the wide head but still glide through the water, but it gives them a lot of maneuverability. So there's actually a plane called there's a type of plane where it's got a little wing at the nose of the plane. And they call it a canard wing. So if there are any plane enthusiasts, they might know what that is. And it's got it gives stability, and I think it stops the plane from stalling. But there's a similar sort of effect that they've found with the fluid dynamics for a hammerhead shark. And so you essentially get this exceptional maneuverability because of the hammerhead's the shape of its head.
Wow. Are there any other advantages in having such a wide head?
Yeah, very likely. So they one thing that a lot of sharks have is they've got they call it ampullae of Lorenzini, essentially these little electro-sense pores around there. So they've got a sixth sense effectively, and they can sense an electric field of another living creature. So a lot of shark deterrent technologies actually try to tap into this. You can put a very strong magnet on you as like a little bracelet on your ankle. And it's supposed to upset the sharks when they get close because it overloads their senses. There's other devices. When I was at uni doing my research, they gave me a shark because I was kayaking out in some areas. They're like, oh, why don't you put a shark? It was like an electromagnetic device that has this strong signal or field which deters sharks apparently. So anyway, that plays into their sense. And the idea behind the sense is, so for an example with great whites, apparently when they go to attack a seal, people might have seen this on Shark Week or those sorts of TV shows, when they do these impressive breaches and grab the seal out of the air and splash in the water, it's actually quite dangerous for the shark because their eyes are crucial to their survival. And so what they'll actually do just before they attack, they'll actually roll their eyes back to protect them, but then they can't see.
Yep.
So in those final split seconds, they'll actually rely on the electric field sense to pinpoint where the prey is and not lose the position of it.
Wow. Look, we're going to go into a little break right now. It is 27 minutes past 4. Very interesting, though, talking about sharks. And look, we'll be coming back to Dr. Michael Thompson very soon. If you have any questions, please send them through to our text line. Just SMS 0401 949 949. You are on 94.9. Good afternoon. You're on Rima 94.9. It's 22 minutes to 5. And we have Dr. Michael Thompson on the line from Creation Ministries International. If you have any questions for him, send them through to our text line 0401 949 949. Now, we've been talking about sharks, specifically hammerhead sharks, and it's very, very interesting. And Dr. Michael, I've got to ask, in regards to those electric fields that you'd mentioned, what is the advantage specifically for hammerheads?
Yeah, good question. Well, so different to other sharks where they might use it for the final moment of their attack. The hammerheads you can almost think of them a bit like you might have seen people walk around the beach with a metal detector.
Yep.
And they've got a big wide, coils of detectors that they scan a larger area with. And so the idea is there's still a bit more science to really back this up, but from what the experiments show, it's got that sort of effect. They've got a wider head, and they can sense a wider area when they're scanning around the sand for their prey, which is often stingrays that are buried in the sand or other things. So I think that the easiest way to think of it is like a nice wide metal detector. And if you've got a wider head, you can detect a bit more. So that's what the research is showing, that it does help them detect things a bit better, or it helps them find a better strategy to find things buried in the sand with all those extra sensory pores.
Yeah, wow. I've heard people call sharks fish. Is that because people believe sharks and fish evolved from a common ancestor?
Well, it's a common thing we hear and we often get taught. I think it's okay to use words like mammals and reptiles and fish to group similar creatures together, and even the Latin names that biologists will give things, the taxonomy they call it.
Yep.
But I guess for us, we realise that God created living things as different kinds from the beginning, and even within those kinds, we can still group them with similar design features. But that doesn't mean we believe that these separate kinds evolved from the same ancestor, like evolutionists would believe. So from each created kind, you can have many other type species of creatures that arise because of the genetic information in them from the start, all the different variations and you get all this diversity that happens. So an example is you've got the canine species and all dogs. There's so many different dogs. They look so different. They get different sizes, different shaped ears and snouts, and but they all come back from an original wolf kind. And so you get so much diversity still from a created kind. But now, of course, the wolf is different to felines, cats, lions, tigers. They can't interbreed. They're a separate created kind.
Yep.
And then so the felines, they can actually, there is a hybridization or interbreeding pattern from, lions all the way down to cats. Not directly, but, one with each other. It goes to show that they're most likely a created kind themselves. So it's useful to group them together, the felines and the dogs as mammals, because they've got similar design features because they've been designed by the same creator. Mm-hmm. But that's not because they evolved from the same ancestor. And so when we think about fish have similar design features, that they've got gills and we see them in the water and all sorts of things. But I think it's the shark groupings would have been a separate created kinds to other types of fish, and many created kinds with different types of fish in the water that were created different from the start, and then from there you get a lot of diversity within those created kinds as well. So we've got some good articles on creation.com. One's called Species Were Designed to Change. So if people type that in, there's some really good explanations by one of our top biologists. Talks about how instead of having one big evolutionary tree of life, it's like multiple trees of life that started from created kinds from the beginning.
I sort of look at sharks, right? I mean, a normal shark's got that sort of pointed head, and then a hammerhead is just so completely different, its head. And you sort of think, oh, yeah, okay, we talk about, well, an evolutionist will talk about, you know, these changes that happen ever so slightly over billions of years and all this sort of stuff. And you sort of think, okay, well, this looked like a shark had a big rock fall on its head and just squished the whole front of its head out. but obviously that doesn't work. That can't cause evolution. But all these tiny changes that would have had to have happened to bring it out to this wide head, there would have been no point to all the intermediate changes, those changes from a pointed head to a wide head. It sort of makes me think, was this a sort of an original kind? Do you think hammerhead sharks were an original created kind, or maybe a variation from original shark kind?
Yeah, there's some good questions there. This is a historical science question, so we can't go back in a time machine and know for sure, but we do have some evidence to sort of guide our understanding of this. And what's really interesting is that there's about 8 to 10 species of hammerhead sharks, and they've got varying widths and shapes of the head. One of them, the head is almost as wide as the body. It's almost comical. And you would think that, well, this is what the evolutionists really thought, is that, I don't know, somewhere along the line, a normal shark, just for some survival advantage, it had a mutation, or it'd have to be a lot of mutations at the same time, and its head got wider, and then it could sense more prey in the sand and survive more and reproduce more. And then over time, that would be more advantageous in different environments, and then you get a wider and wider head over time. But the DNA sequencing that they did actually showed the opposite, that the ancestor of what I think created kind was actually the hammerhead shark with, or a type earlier on, with the widest head possible. So you can imagine that they've got to try to explain how a shark with no hammerhead has mutations and all this, and it'd have to be a lot, all at the same time to be functional, to have this enormously wide head. And then it starts changing to be smaller or for different environments. So I think it actually is quite strong evidence to say that this is actually pointing to the created kind model, to say that God, I think it makes a lot of sense that God would have made a created kind hammerhead shark different to other types of created kind sharks. And the first one probably had a very wide head, as the DNA sequencing actually gives us evidence for. So that the evidence that the evolutionary biologists actually found, I think actually points to the created kind model, to God's design from the start.
Wow, that's incredible. In fact, I was thinking how would it go the other way, but that it certainly does. It indicates that they didn't just go from fish to shark to hammerhead, particularly if they've actually seen it go that way. That is absolutely amazing. Oh, wow. Dr. Michael Thompson, that was an incredibly interesting talk about sharks. I thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no worries at all. It's nice to talk about them. I think they're quite fascinating creatures, even though they're scary sometimes. Yeah,
I find them scary all the time. Every time I see them, I find them a little bit scary. Look, thank you so much. We've come to the end of another awesome week, and I believe we have you in, looks like September next, 15th of September. I'm looking forward to it already. Thank you so much for your time this week.
Excellent. Looking forward to it as well. Thanks, Mick.
You're on 94.9. It is 4:47.